Hello and welcome to What If Deku Was the Portal Master, Part 2. So, where we last left off, Chop Chop recommended to Deku to, meditate to try and control his elemental energies, and the government and the Plo Heroes were in a meeting trying to decide whether or not they should trust Chop Chop. Now, at that meeting, they were talking a lot. You know, they still don't think they can trust Chop Chop, but All Might brings up the point that Chop Chop wants to train Deku, and even if, Deku is in danger, he has the ability to teleport. So if things go south, he'll be able to make a portal and get everyone out of there, right? And he also said that he's Oh, and Chop Chop also said that it's okay for other pro heroes to come along with him. So that means that they can be sure that he will be safe and can tell him to get out of there if things get rough. Eventually the government agrees with All Might. It took a lot of convincing, but they agree. Now, unfortunately, All Might isn't going to be able to go. He's the #1 pro hero, so he needs to stay. The heroes that will end up going are gonna be Endeavor and Eraserhead. They're gonna be leaving, which means this point in Todoroki's life is probably gonna be the best point in his life because Endeavor isn't gonna be there. So it's gonna be less training heavy, and he's actually gonna be able to interact with his siblings. So yeah, he'll still have daddy issues, but he'll have a point in his life where it's like, yay, I can be happy. Anyways, so the Endeavor and Eraserhead are getting ready. They're making sure that they have enough supplies to go. Uh, they're making sure that they have a way to keep Chop Chop, technically captured. They don't want him walking around the facility freely because they still don't trust him, but they do want him to be able to protect himself when they go. And Chop Chop does understand this. He isn't resisting at all. So they're less strict with with his restraints. As of right now, it's just a single pair of hand restraints. Endeavor has his sword and shield, and they make the portal for Izuku, Endeavor, and Eraserhead to go through. It's the largest one they've made yet, And Chop Chop says that if you make it out of stone, you won't need to rebuild this portal, and it will be easier to fine-tune what comes in and out. And government, they don't really question this. They ask, will creatures from your world be able to come into ours? And Chop Chop says, not without a portal master. Not without a portal master. Now, they are relieved by the fact that Izuku is the only one able to open these portals, so they do end up making the base of the portal out of stone. And when Izuku activates it, it looks like the portal. The entirety of the portal grows, and it transforms to look like the portal of power. Now, particularly the portal of power that you get when you buy the Skylanders, Spyro's Adventures, and Giants game. I didn't manage to grab a photo of it, But that's the portal. That's what it looked. But if you know what I'm talking about, that's what it's looked like. It looks like I'm gonna have a picture ready when I record the next part of what it actually looks like. Okay? So they step on the portal, it activates, and they are all covered in a giant beam of light. And when the beam of light fades, they see that they're somewhere else. There are floating islands everywhere. Some of them have rivers, and water is falling off of them. It just looks like a collection of islands floating through the sky. And this is what Chop Chop was talking about. And Chop Chop says, there is a lot to be done here. We will need to get somewhere safe. But we can still teach the boy things on our journey. And they ask if Chop Chop knows anywhere. And Chop Chop responds with, I do. Thankfully, it's not far from here. We should be able to get into it simply by using the teleporters already on the islands. They ask what this place is, and Chop Chop turns to them and says, it is known as the Skylanders Academy. Now, follow me. I have a camp a few meters away. We should be able to stop there to rest. It takes a lot out of the Portal Master to transport so many people that aren't from Skylands here. And they do see that Izuku is tired. So Chop Chop leads them to the camp. Eraserhead is holding Izuku and Endeavor's covering the flank, making sure that they aren't being followed. Chop Chop says that you do not need to worry about that. The worst that's in this forest is a Chompy. They are very easy to defeat. As long as you have an elemental alignment. They ask what that is, and Chop Chop says, as of right now, there's 8. As of right now, there are 10, but for simplicity's sake, we want to make sure that your Portal Master masters the first 8, as a just in case. So they ask what they are, and Chop Chop tells them that there are 8 elements that the Portal Master, needs to master. But the 2 I have not told him about yet are light and dark. They were created when a large source of Traptanium was destroyed, releasing a group of villains. But we cannot focus on that now. So they think to themselves, like, well, he knows how things work here. So they're starting to trust him a little bit more with how much he's cooperating and how transparent he is. Like, when they get to the camp, like, they remove the restraints, and Chop Chop takes his sword and shield back. The Book of Skylanders was in Chop Chop's shield, so he takes it out. He puts it on a stump nearby the campfire that's there. He goes into a tent, saying, please, okay, there's no chompies in here. It's safe to bring him in. So they bring Zuko in, they put him down, and Endeavor sees, like, a chompy. It isn't, like, it isn't acting aggressive. It's, it's just walking into the camp. Endeavor gets on the defensive since he knows that he isn't going to be able to, like, properly damage it. And Chop Chop walks out. He looks at the Chompy. The Chompy looks at him, and he says, "Oh, it's only you. It is fine. This one's friendly." Endeavor, he's still on guard, but he steps out of his defensive posture. And then Chop Chop says, "It's been a little while." And the Chompy, it responds. I don't know how to describe the noise it would make, but it responds. And it walks to the tent. Chop Chop follows it. He opens the tent up. Zuko, he isn't, like, knocked out. He's lying down, he isn't knocked out. He's just very tired. And the Chompy runs up to Zuko and hugs him. Zuko instantly recognizes the Chompy, and he hugs it back. He laughs a little bit. And Eraserhead says that sorry to break up the reunion, but you need to regain your strength, Midoriya. Midoriya says, "Okay." And Chop Chop says, "It's starting to become nighttime anyways. I'll go get some more firewood. You two should probably set up sleeping bags and any extra tents that you may have on you." And they do. They're talking, and Endeavor and Eraserhead are talking. They're like, "We need to keep a close..." Okay, phone cut out. Sorry about that. I'm either going to be stitching this together in a video editor on my phone, or I'm going to be posting this as a part 2B. Anyways, so they say that they need to keep a closer eye on Chop Chop, like, just in case he's leaving the group too much, because they are not really worried about Chop Chop doing anything to Midoriya, since they're going to be near Midoriya, like, a lot. And, when Chop Chop returns to the camp, he has a bunch of firewood, and then in his shield, he has a bunch of eggs. Endeavor and Eraserhead are confused about this, and Chop Chop says that some of these eggs will be our supper tonight, and the rest will be our breakfast tomorrow. Eggs will be the best food we'll be able to eat until we manage to reach the academy. And, Endeavor and Eraserhead's question has been answered, so they finish setting up their tents, and Chop Chop starts cooking some of the eggs. He makes Deku's eggs first. I keep switching between calling Deku, like, Izuku, Midoriya, and Deku, so keep that in mind. I'm gonna be doing that. But Chop Chop makes Izuku's eggs first. He walks into Izuku's tent, and Izuku, he's almost asleep. The Chompy is right by lying against Izuku, and it's asleep. And Chop Chop, he hands Izuku his eggs, saying that this will be the best I'll be able to do till we reach the academy. I'll wake you up in the morning so that we will be able to get going early. He pats Izuku on the head, and he leaves the tent. Izuku eats the eggs, he yells out goodnight, and then goes to sleep. No one really responds to him since he immediately went to sleep. Chop Chop checked just in case. So, and Endeavor asks, who's gonna be keeping watch during the night. And Chop Chop says that I do not need sleep, so I will be able to stay up through the entire night. You two can rest. You'll need all the energy you get. There's a small chance that we will be attacked tomorrow, so we're going to be able to move out of the camp fast. I will wake you all up when the time's right to pack up camp and leave. So Endeavor and Eraserhead, they go to sleep. Eraserhead has a little trouble going to sleep since it's nighttime, and Eraserhead's a nocturnal hero, but he does manage to. And, we're looking above the camp now, and it slowly zooms out, and it starts to be tinted red, and then we see that someone's looking through a red portal, and then someone says this, those fools think that this novice portal master will be able to stop me. Ha! There's nothing they can do to stop me. And he starts laughing maniacally. Glum shakes and enters the room and says, Lord Chaos, the trolls are ready to move, sir. And Chaos says, good. Tell them to raid the camp tomorrow morning. And Glumshake says, sir, I think that's a bad idea. If we strike now, we'll be able to catch them off guard. And Chaos interrupts him, saying, silence! They will do as I command, and I say that they attack them tomorrow morning. Glumshake says, yes, sir. I'll go tell the trolls. And he leaves the room. Chaos says they'll never see what sorry. Chaos says that they'll never see what hit him, and he starts laughing maniacally. So the morning comes. Now I'm saying that Chop Chop starts to wake people up at around 4 in the morning. Endeavor's a little bit tired. Eraserhead, he isn't as tired as he normally would be in canon, since he's nocturnal, so he's more used to being up late. And Izuku's a little tired. He hands out breakfast to everyone. Izuku gets 1 egg, Endeavor and Eraserhead gets 2, and the Chompy gets 5, because the Chompy's a hungry boy. So, once they're done eating, Chop Chop says that we're gonna need, and they're more awake now, so Chop Chop says we're gonna need to gather everything so that we can move. We're gonna need to be setting up camp at least 2 more times before we reach the academy. And they manage to pack everything, and then a ship flies overhead. Chop Chop sees this and says, we need to move now. And Endeavor says why, and he says, And he says that there are trolls overhead. It looks like an attack ship. They're most likely trying to get rid of the young Portal Master early on, before he becomes a threat. When you get to the other side of the island, it has a teleporter there. Once we take the teleporter, we should be safe. So, Endeavor, he's paying attention to the skies, and Eraserhead grabs Izuku. They're all carrying their stuff, and they start booking it to the other side of the island. And the trolls see this. They try shooting at them, but Chop Chop is consistently leading them undercover, so they're able to avoid most of the and they're able to avoid the rest of the shots that do actually land on the ground. And some trolls, they get a little restless and they jump off of the attack ships. They start parachuting down far in front of them. They know the path that they're taking. So Chop Chop raises his sword and says, we're probably going to have to fight our way through the rest of the island. And the Chompy, he's right behind Chop Chop. The Chompy agrees with this. It jumps up, it lands on Eraserhead because it wants to keep Izuku safe. It's like Chop Chop and Izuku are its only friends, and Izuku cannot defend himself, so the Chompy's like, yeah, I'm gonna protect this kid. Now, it isn't saying anything, but you can understand that. So, it's a little bit later, they're still dodging cannon fire, and then they see a small troll base. They're still setting it up, and Chop Chop runs in. He starts to attack them. As of right, they don't know about his bone spikes yet, but he's mainly just using his skills with a sword and shield, and he's taking all of them out. He knocks down the part of the weakest part of the wall. Everyone jumps through, and they continue going. Chop Chop also does some block pushing puzzles to make a path through make paths. He's scouting. He's ahead of everyone else, not by much, but he's still ahead, clearing the path, making sure that everyone is able to go through. So eventually, after 5 minutes of this, they've managed to reach the other side of the island, and they all get on the teleporter. It activates. It shoots a beam of light up into the sky, and where it lands in a new location. It looks like this location is more of a island. It's more of a desert. And Chop Chop says, "This is weird. They must have swapped some of the teleporters. This may take a little bit longer than I thought." That just means we'll have more time to teach. That just means we'll have more time to teach young Midoriya some of the more basic techniques. And Chop Chop, he looks around, and he sees a small group of trolls, and they're trying to move a teleporter. And he points it out to the rest of the group, and they start running towards them. And they are about to miss the trolls leaving with the teleporter, but the Choppy jumps to Chop Chop, and Chop Chop throws the Choppy at one of the trolls, and it knocks the troll to the ground. It jumps around on the ship. It attacks the pilot. The pilot is distracted by it. The ship slowly turns back to the island. Choppy manages to get off before the ship blows up, and they all take the teleporter that's there. And now they're in a location without trolls. There's no battleships, and Chop Chop recognizes this area. And he says, okay, looks like we'll be taking a bit of an alternate path. But we'll still manage to get there in like one or two more islands. We should also set up camp here. It's far away from where the trolls were. And it will take them a day for them to reach us. If they're using their fastest ships. Which it didn't look like they did, and they were. So they start setting up camp. And Chop Chop says, now, Portal Master Izuku, this is where you will need to train to become a better Portal Master. He will start by teaching you how to better control your, abilities to transport things. Izuku is questioning this, and Chop Chop says, come with me. There is something I want to show you. And he turns around, and walks with Deku a few feet, and Deku sees this expanse of islands, and he says, this is what the entirety of Skylanders looks like. Islands floating together, making a masterpiece of art. And you need to learn how to get things from one island to the other. And since you are from a different world, you'll need to learn how to transport things between your world and this one. We will start with teleportation, since you have not learned that yet. Chop Chop then passes Deku a rock, and says, focus on where you want to send it. Deku outstretches his hand to the nearest island, and he focuses. The energy surrounds Deku. Light starts to surround the rock as it is, and then it disappears. They see a flash of light on the closest island, and something falls. Chop Chop says, very good. Very good. You know how to you can focus on it, but we need to make sure that it can things can be transported in one piece. He says, as he points to the ground where there's a few smaller pieces of rock. See, and he says that not every teleportation is 100% accurate at the start. So, for now, I will need you to stand on this stump, he says, pointing to a stump nearby, and I want you to teleport objects that I give you to the other stump, he says, as he points to another stump across the way. It is easily in Deku's vision. And Chop Chop says, as long as you can visualize where it is, you can teleport things there. So, Chop Chop hands Deku another rock, and says, try teleporting it again. Focus on the rock, and then the location. And Deku focuses. He feels the rock, until he knows what its general shape. He outstretches his hand and points towards the stump. He closes his eyes. He focuses even more. The rock is covered in light as it is teleported to the other stump. However, again, it is smaller than it was before. Chop Chop says, this is very impressive. I knew that you would be a talented portal master, but I did not expect this much. Deku is, questioning this, and Chop Chop says that it usually takes a portal master a few weeks in order teleport something without breaking it. And he says that teleporting something and simply just removing a few layers off of it, making it smaller, is a big feat, especially for someone with your kind of knowledge on how to do things. Now, Deku thanks him, and he says, "We'll do this a few more times before we get into self-defense. I heard that one of the people here has been teaching you." Deku responds by saying, "Yeah, Eraserhead's been teaching me. He's a pretty good teacher." Chop Chop says, "Okay then. But still, you will need to master teleportation and the creation of portals, just in case we need to reactivate them." He hands Deku another rock, and Deku continues to teleport it. Each time takes a little less time. Each time Deku teleports the rock, it takes a little less time, but the state the rock is in never changes. Deku is saddened by this, but Chop Chop says that it's simply how the Portal Master learns. We cannot interfere with how they perceive things. We can only tell them what to do and how to do it. Chop Chop then, after a little bit more teleporting, Zuko is able to teleport the rock fully without damaging it. But however, by focusing on it for around 5 minutes. When Deku opens his eyes and sees the rock hasn't been damaged, Chop Chop goes over and investigates. Makes sure that it isn't soft and won't crumble upon impact. And then he says, "Very good. It seems like you really seems like you're doing better. A few more times and you'll be able to properly teleport things." As he breaks the rock open and shows that it's gooey on the inside. Deku is a little bit frightened by this, and Chop Chop says, "Don't worry, none of the teleporters have been shut down yet. It will be around the time when you're 14 when they actually start to shut down." Deku breathes a sigh of relief, since he has 4 more years to learn how to teleport things properly. And then Eraser, Head, and Endeavor say that they're done setting up their tents. Chop Chop says good, and Eraserhead, now would be a good time to give the young Portal Master some more lessons on self-defense. He'll need it, especially while we're outside of the academy walls. Eraserhead agrees to this, and he goes over to Deku, and he begins to train him, while Chop Chop is walking away to set up his tent. Now, the Chompy has been watching the entire time, and Endeavor's just standing there. You know, they're just looking at each other. It's basically a staring contest. If the only way to end it is if someone looks somewhere else. So they're just staring at each other. You know. A few hours later, Deku has kind of gotten tired of the training. Eraserhead says that they'll still need to continue. And Chop Chop says that he'll go look for some food. You know, and the Chompy and Endeavor, they're just sitting down. They haven't really been doing much. You know, Endeavor's been surveying the basic area nearby. and the Chompy has been making little rounds around the camp, making sure that nothing comes in. So when Chop Chop returns, he sees that Endeavor has been making rounds around the camp with the Chompy. And I'd say that him and the Chompy have made a little bit of a bond. They haven't been, interacting with each other, but they both know that they want to keep everyone there safe. And Azuku and Eraserhead have stopped training so that Azuku can take a break because he was really tired and he had a few bruises. So when Chop Chop arrives, he starts. I don't know why I'm yawning, but he starts cooking some eggs. And he says that they can. Chop Chop says that they can do one of two things. They can either wait till Deku is able to, isn't tired anymore and can walk again, and then they can make their way to the other side of the island where the teleporter is, or they can stay here, or they can all stay here and rest for the day. Endeavor and Eraserhead think it's a good idea to continue across the island. Deku doesn't want to, but he's okay with it, and the Chompy isn't able to say something. So Chop Chop finishes cooking the eggs. He hands them out to everybody. He also has one himself, because he did end up fighting some stuff. He did take some damage. And then he tells them that food in this world has kind of like a bonus property. Whenever you eat food here, it heals you. And depending on the food you eat, it will heal you a different amount. Unfortunately, eggs do not heal that much, but it's enough for people to get saved from fatal wounds. They can't help regrow limbs or anything. It won't heal fatal wounds entirely, but it'll at least nullify the damage. And when Deku eats his food, all of the bruises are gone. He hasn't recuperated his energy, but all of the damage that he's sustained is gone, since it wasn't really that much to begin with. And the same can be said for Eraserhead, because Deku did manage to get some hits in on him, but not that much. So once they're done eating, they pack everything up. It's a little more organized this time. And as they're walking, Chop Chop decides that this is a good time to teach Deku about the Book of Skylanders. So Chop Chop hands Deku the book, and he says that you are going to need to hold on to this. And he hands him the book. So Deku asks what he does with it, and Chop Chop replies saying that whenever you meet someone you want to be a Skylander, or whenever you meet a former Skylander and you know that they are ready to become one again, all you need to do is open the book, turn to a blank page, and draw them. As of right now, the book is empty again, so there are many free spaces. This book has an infinite number of pages, even though it may not look like it. And Deku asks, how many Skylanders were there? And Chop Chop says, I don't remember the exact number. There was far more than 100 when things started to fall apart, however. And Razorhead says, well, I thought that there would be more. And Chop Chop says, this generally is a small world. It can infinitely expand, but only if people travel in one direction. So and Eraserhead says, so there's no real limit to what can be there? Like, there's no way you can go from one side of the planet and end up on the other side through travel? And Chop Chop says that we simply have not explored the entirety of the world. It is so large that what I said is just a common myth. However, it is better to think that way, since this world is governed by magic. And Eraserhead and Endeavor, they're looking at each other, they're like, okay, so this planet is really large. Endeavor asks, then why have so few heroes? Chop responds, saying that all of the islands that they've explored, they've managed to inhabit for the most part. There are actually very few inhabited islands in Skylands. So all they need to do is have enough heroes to patrol the areas that are inhabited by people. And if there is a group of villains doing something bad, they have enough Skylanders on hand to send a group to deal with them. And Endeavor then decides to ask, well, is there a ranking system for Skylanders? And Chop Chop chuckles a little bit at this and says, no, we don't tend to consider one Skylander better than the other. Sure, we do tend to send the more experienced Skylanders out on missions, but there's no one Skylander that is absolutely perfect. That is always better than every other Skylander. And having a ranking system seems counterintuitive, since all of the Skylanders essentially are a giant team. Endeavor is surprised by this, but understands. Razorhead hasn't really been paying attention. And, as they continue going, they reach the other side of the island. And he's like, And Chop Chop, he says, this portal looks familiar. He investigates it, and he says, this is odd. It seems like they really have changed the portals around. This portal, I remember this portal distinctly. It's one of the portals that take people to the Skylanders Academy. Endeavor says that it's good luck. We'll be able to set up a proper base of operations at the Academy. And Chop Chop agrees with this, and everyone gets on. And when they are transported, they see this. Just pretend that guy at the bottom isn't there, or there's speech bubble, but they see the Academy. And Chop Chop says, inside of the main building there is another proper portal. The young portal master will be able to use that to link the portal you have set up at your military base with the Academy, meaning that people from your world will be able to transport between there and the Academy easily. There are also several bedrooms, a training room, a swimming pool, a cafeteria, and a few classrooms. This academy is supposed to be where Skylanders learn to be Skylanders, and sometimes is where Portal Masters are trained. Now, the group is a little... Why am I yawning so much? The group's a little awestruck by how well crafted the academy is. And Chop Chop says that the academy has slowly been floating apart. The size of the academy is directly linked to the number of Skylanders. And since we're here, there's someone I'd like to introduce you to. He's going to be the main person teaching you about this world and its rules. And the group starts to walk into the actual academy, like they're going up the stairs, and Endeavor asks, like, after we meet this person, how long should it take for the main portal to be constructed? And Chop Chop says that it's already been constructed. All we need to do is teach the young Portal Master how to connect two portals, which is really easy. They've always managed to do it within a few attempts. And this Portal Master, young Portal Master is far more talented than most others, so it should be fairly quick. And as they enter the academy, they see a library. And as they enter, Chop Chop calls out to someone. Hugo, I have returned with the young Portal Master. His world decided to send 2 other people with him for protection. Hugo then shows his head, and he walks over to greet the group. He says, "Hi, my name's Hugo. I was Master Eon's assistant before he, passed away. But I'll be able to teach the Portal Master everything I know." Chop Chop then says, This is Zuko Midoriya. He's the Portal Master. He's the Portal Master that I brought. These are heroes from his world. They're referred to as Eraserhead and Endeavor. Hugo says, "It's nice to meet you." And Eraserhead and Endeavor greet him, and Izuku greets Hugo. And Hugo says, "Well, it seems like you must be pretty talented if you've already given him the book." And Chop Chop says yes. He's actually almost completely mastered teleportation. Hugo is surprised by this and asks how long he's been training. And Chop Chop says he's been transporting things between Skylands and his world for a while now, but we've only had one training session for the basics of teleportation. Hugo is still impressed by this, and he says, "Well then, I'll get you a place to study. You should also probably put Chop Chop into that book of yours." And Deku agrees to this because Chop Chop has been helping them out the entirety of the time. And he said that he used to be a Skylander while they were traveling. So, once there's a place for Deku to study, he sits down and, he tries drawing Chop Chop in the book, isn't that good, but it's honestly, I really want to do this. It's if you've seen the Skylanders Academy TV show, you know that Eon isn't really all that good at drawing. So basically, it's like he draws like I don't like a regular 10-year-old. I'm gonna say that Izuku actually draws a little bit better than most people for his age. You know, Chop Chop likes the drawing. And he's joking, he says, it's better than what Master Eon did, but it's a little bit better than what Master Eon did. You know, him and Hugo laugh, and Chop Chop says that Master Eon was not the kind of person who was able to draw. And now that I'm in the book of Skylanders, I should have my full strength back. There isn't really a noticeable difference. There isn't a noticeable difference to the person you affect. However, they must be willing to become a Skylander. You know, sorry about that. Sorry about that random pause. So I'm gonna say that Hugo is. I'm gonna do a time skip. You know, now that Izuku and the others are able to freely travel between Skylands and Earth, they've been setting up a lot more. They've been using Skylands as a base of operations that villains can't possibly access. You know, and people have heard all about the Portal Master. They don't know who the Portal Master is, but they've heard about him. And none of the people at Deku's school has been able to put two and two together from when they were really young. And I'm gonna say that, it's graduation. You know, Deku, it's not graduation, it's the last day of middle school. You know, everything goes as in canon, basically. So the teacher walks in with the papers and says, I have these, so that you can write down what you want to do in the future. And he throws them up in the air and says, who am I kidding? I know that you all want to be heroes. And everyone starts using their quirks except for Bakugo and Deku. Deku is holding up his hand, but he isn't as nervous about it. He still is nervous, but not as nervous. And Bakugo then says, hey, Teach, don't lump me in with all of these losers. They'd be lucky to become B-listers. Well, I'm gonna become number one and surpass All Might himself. You know? And the teacher says, yes, you are. You are trying to get into UA, aren't you? And the class is shocked by this, and they say, he's going for the national school? It has a 2% acceptance rate. Also, sorry for the dogs. And they say things along those lines, you know. And then the teacher says, yes, and, Azuku, and we have one other student applying for UA here. My phone decided to, turn off, and I didn't catch it, but anyways, back to the what if. The teacher says, there's one other student applying for UA, Zuko Midoriya? And everyone starts laughing at this. Like they're saying, him? There's no way he's getting into UA. And some other students saying, like, yeah, right. Like he could even possibly hope to get in. Like they're basically just making fun of him and mocking him. You know, when Bakugo's angry at this, like, and, the bell rings and teacher says, oh, The teacher says, well, you'll still have to fill these papers out. And they fill the papers out, the bell rings, the teacher says, class dismissed. Everyone starts to leave. Deku is still the last one in the classroom, but he's a little bit faster at putting things away this time. So, when Bakugo walks up to him and blows up his desk, everything's already in his bag. So I'd say that the conversation goes as normal, except for Bakugo doesn't destroy Deku's notebook and throw it out the window. And Deku is kind of saddened by what Bakugo says, thinking that I wonder how he'll react to what I actually am. I don't think he'll believe me, or the teacher. When he starts walking, he takes an alternate path this time, because he wants to get home because he needs to get home faster for some meeting at the academy. Because someone has shown up at the academy. So, Deku, he's running and he goes under a bridge. Come on. And the sewer drain is, it's moved slightly. Deku doesn't know this, so he keeps going. And then he's attacked by the sludge villain. The sludge villain, hops out, and before the sludge villain can actually do anything to Deku, Deku shoots an icicle, which freezes the sludge villain on impact. All Might then arrives and says, I am here. Ah, young Midoriya. And Deku's like, oh, hi, All Might. And All Might says, I was just tracking this villain down. It seems like he isn't having a lucky day. And All Might laughs a little. The ice just randomly dissipates, and the sludge villain, he's horrified, right? Because All Might knows this kid, and this kid just froze him with a singular attack. So he tries to get away. All Might throws a Detroit Smash, knocking the villain unconscious. He bottles him up and says to the bottle, this isn't your lucky day after all. It seems like the Portal Master really does have some tricks up his sleeve. And, in the sludge villain's head, he's like, that was the Portal Master? What? I thought it was just a conspiracy theory, but what? Everyone knows about the Portal Master now. They don't know who he is, but they know about the Portal Master. And, people want to know who the Portal Master is, but no one's giving any information. So, All Might jumps off. Deku does not grab onto All Might's leg. However, while All Might's traveling, he does still drop the bottle. And Bakugo kicks it, releasing the sludge villain again. And while Deku's walking home, he hears some explosions. He goes over and sees that Bakugo is trapped in the sludge villain. None of the heroes are doing anything because they don't have the right quirk. And Deku, he wasn't originally going to help because he knew that, the sludge villain, he was super scared and desperate, so his moves would be, less fluid. But, his body, but then he saw Bakugo, and his body kind of moved on its own. He's charged at the sludge villain, and the sludge villain, upon seeing Deku, he's like, not you again. And he grabs a bunch of the debris nearby and starts swinging it around at Deku, so Deku isn't actually able to to approach the sludge villain. He's just dodging everything. And Deku's actions inspire All Might to push beyond his limit, and he comes in, pulls Bakugo out of the sludge villain, and releases a Detroit Smash. And he releases a Detroit Smash, knocking the villain out again. He then grabs the sludge villain, Deku leaves. Bakugo, he's getting praised for how powerful his quirk is. They didn't manage to catch Deku in time, because, he started to leave when, he already is gone. And I'm gonna say that in this what if, Bakugo doesn't come up and say, I didn't need your help, because Deku didn't actually help. He was trying to, but he couldn't. So, and I'm also gonna say that since All Might already knows Deku, he's waiting to see how powerful he will get before offering him one for all. And, yeah, I'm gonna say that's just about all of the changes for that. So, about this person who had arrived at the academy. So, about this person who had arrived at the academy. So, Deku, he arrives at the academy. He's wondering what's going on. He walks over to Chop Chop and asks, what's going on? Who's this mysterious person at the academy? And Chop Chop says that she was an old ally. And she says that she knows where a few other people are, but she knows where one other person is, one other Skylander. They haven't actually been traveling together, but but this Skylander is injured. So, and Chop Chop brings Deku into a room. And when they enter the room, Deku meets Stealth Elf. And Deku says, why are the names here so, so bad or, uncreative? And Chop Chop says, well, there were toys of us, so, it might be some kind of external influence for easy naming conventions or something. And Deku just looks at Chop Chop super confused. And Chop Chop's like, okay, okay then. So, anyways, Deku walks over to Stealth Elf and asks her if she's okay. And she replies, yeah, I'm okay. I know where someone else who used to be a Skylander is, but it's pretty dangerous. So Deku says, oh, okay then. Can you tell us where it is, And she explains where the teleporter is to go there. And Deku, he walks over to Chop Chop and he's like, okay, let's go get whoever this person is. And Chop Chop's like, okay, I'll get my stuff ready. You should probably tell Hugh, and we should probably tell Hugo about the 10-month break before you entering high school as well. I remembered that this was your last day of middle school. And Deku says that he's gonna be spending some more time here. and that he is definitely going to be spending some more time here. And Chop Chop's like, good. We're just about to get into the superchargers in your studying, you know. And Deku's like, but I have other things to study as well. And Chop Chop says, I know, but as the Polo Master, you need to learn about this world. Besides, I'm sure that the Hero Society already knows who you are probably teaching at whichever hero high school that you're attending. So it's highly likely that they'll let you in. You know, and Deku says, but I don't want to use what I am as an excuse. I want to get in on my own merits. And Chop Chop says, now that is what I like. But since I have my stuff ready, we should probably go. And Deku, he agrees to this, and they exit the academy. And they arrive on a strange island. Now, this island, it has more chompies than normal. Chop Chop says that, this is strange. There aren't as many chompies here. There shouldn't be as many chompies here. This might be the work of the Chompy Mage. And Deku asks who this Chompy Mage character is. And Chop Chop responds by saying, the Chompy Mage is a wizard who is slightly insane and has a strange obsession with chompies. It's likely that he's the reason why there are so many in this area, although they seem unorganized. It's likely that the Chompy Mage was here at one point, but left. And Deku asks, well, is there a way to get through without, having to fight all of these? And Chop Chop says, I know it's tiresome, but the best way to get back is to clear a path, which means we most likely will need to fight a lot of them. And they both get into battle positions, ready to fight all the chompies. And that's where I'm gonna leave this what if off today. You will not believe how many times I've had to start up a new recording just to make this part because my phone has turned off. My god. But yeah. So try and guess who it is in the comments down below. If you want a particular Skylander to be in this what if in the future, go to part 0. Link to the video will be in the description along with a link to the playlist. And that is about it. So bye.